So it comes to this. They finally crossed the line, hiring a professional, a private investigator with 20 years of experience, a flawless reputation, and an uncanny talent for unearthing secrets that destroy lives. Real money changed hands, the kind that travels in silence through unmarked envelopes. The assignment was simple. Uncover who you truly are. Expose your flaw, your weakness, your hidden scandal. Anything to explain why your mere presence unsettles them so deeply. But 3 weeks later, the investigator returned not with a damning report, but with confusion written across their face. Sitting at the polished mahogany table, they looked your enemies in the eye and said words that froze the room. "I've been doing this for 2 decades. I've brought down politicians, cheaters, and frauds. But this one is different. What I found doesn't make sense. The people who paid for your destruction leaned in, eager for their promised dirt. But the investigator pulled out a single sheet of paper, hands trembling slightly. The person you're investigating isn't who you think they are. They're nothing like what you described. What I found isn't criminal or scandalous. It's something else entirely. It's like looking at someone who shouldn't exist according to the rules we live by." That's when the fear began. They realized too late that they hadn't hired someone to expose you. They had hired someone who would expose them. The investigator didn't find your secrets. They found your power. And worse still, they found proof that every accusation your enemies made about you was projection. Every rumor, every lie, every whispered slight was simply their reflection, echoing back from the mirror of your existence. At first, the investigator followed protocol: birth records, school transcripts, job history, social media footprints, financial statements, criminal databases, searching for a single blemish. But the deeper they dug, the cleaner it got, unnervingly flawless. That alone made them suspicious. Maybe you were hiding something, they thought. So they went further, talking to teachers, neighbors, employers, anyone who knew you. Yet the stories they heard rewrote everything they thought they knew about people. "Yeah, I remember them," they heard again and again. "Quiet, sharp, never caused trouble, but always seemed to see everything. Once they helped me when no one else would, then disappeared. Stranger still, everyone who ever tried to hurt you eventually self-destructed, not because you retaliated, but because karma itself seemed to accelerate around you." The investigator noted this pattern with unease. In their experience, people this spotless were hiding something monumental. So they delved deeper. Deep web forums, hidden government archives, underground databases, calling in favors from contacts who didn't exist on paper. And then came the shock. What they didn't find. Whole years missing from records, cameras that malfunctioned when you appeared, files with your name but no details. A therapist's report read, "This patient sees things others can't." "I'm not qualified for this," a former boss noted. "Exemplary employee, but their presence changes everything. Productivity up 40%. 3 people quit, saying they felt exposed. Even a police report noted, subject's testimony solved 5 unrelated cold cases. Method unknown. Every person who tried to harm you unraveled within 6 months. Their own corruption and deceit exposed without you ever lifting a finger. It was as if reality itself had decided to defend you. The investigator traced you through 5 cities, each tied to mysterious events, power outages, crashed systems, exposed scandals, all occurring where you had merely been nearby. You were never seen intervening, yet always there, a quiet observer. When they began interviewing people who knew you now, something even stranger happened. Each person described an encounter that changed their lives. "They didn't give advice," one said. "They just looked at me, and I saw everything I'd been avoiding. My life changed after that." Another confessed, "I tried to sabotage them once. Every lie I told came true about me. Reality itself defended them." An ex admitted, trembling, "I made up stories to ruin them." They didn't respond, just walked away. But then everything I accused them of happened to me. Desperate to rationalize, the investigator turned to your digital footprint, scanning everything: posts, metadata, IP logs. But your online presence defied logic. Posts appeared and vanished, seen by some but not others. Algorithms couldn't categorize you. Forums were filled with people describing encounters with you. They liked my post, and that night I dreamed what I needed to change. They commented once, and my fake life fell apart. Your frequency, it seemed, altered digital space itself. Even your enemies' cyber attacks backfired, their devices crashing, their own secrets leaking. It was as if the internet itself recognized and protected your frequency. Unnerved, the investigator brought in a government profiler. 2 weeks of analysis produced a report that began clinically and ended trembling. "In 30 years, I've never seen a profile like this," it read. "They display trauma without damage, betrayal without bitterness, pain without victimhood. It's as if they metabolize suffering into strength. Psychological frameworks fail. They exist in completion, beyond revenge or closure. Their presence bends probability. Lies collapse near them. Truth surfaces. Events bend toward their protection." The final recommendation was chilling. Do not engage. They represent evolution. Any attempt to target them is an act of self-destruction. The danger is not in their actions, but in the laws of reality that defend them. The investigator, now deeply shaken, went further back, into ancestry. What they found wasn't a lineage, but a legend. Ancestors who appeared in old records as if out of nowhere, predicting disasters, healing overnight, vanishing unchanged. Classified files described your bloodline as anomalous but protected. Desperate, the investigator turned to specialists in energy, quantum frequencies, and biofields. Their readings defied science. "Your electromagnetic field broadcast across dimensions," they said, "a walking disruption to the matrix. Your voice carried harmonics that speak directly to the soul." They said you weren't communicating, you were transmitting. Your presence awakened dormant DNA, healed ancestral wounds, and triggered transformation. When photographed with specialized equipment, your energy field appeared as a cosmic storm. Impossible colors, breathing geometry, alive patterns that destabilized instruments and responded to human thought. "This one," the technician wrote, "is under ancient guardianship." Quantum physicists later confirmed data anomalies showing probability distortions around you, reality itself bending into karmic symmetry. Integrity flourished near you, deceit collapsed. As the investigator absorbed this, their own life began to shift. Lost objects appeared, old wounds healed, nightmares stopped. They felt seen, whole, aligned. The investigation became a mirror. They weren't studying you. You were revealing them to themselves. Files turned into reflections, and even their family noticed the change. They had become calmer, wiser, lighter. They weren't corrupted by the investigation. They were cleansed by it. In the quiet of night, they realized this wasn't an investigation anymore. It was initiation. 3 months later, they wrote their final report. "To my clients," it began, "you hired me to expose someone you called manipulative, deceptive, dangerous. I used every resource I had. What I found is not what you paid for. They are dangerous, yes, but not to you. They are dangerous to your lies. They live in truth, while you live in illusion. You fear them because they show you who you really are. They don't retaliate. Reality defends them. Attack them, and your own energy turns against you. Mock them, and your emptiness echoes louder. They are not a manipulator. They are a mirror. Leave them alone. They are not your enemy. They are your reckoning. If you don't like what you see, it's not the mirror that's broken. It's you. They signed the report, sent it, and sat in silence. But something still gnawed at them. They began to investigate the clients themselves, and uncovered a pattern. Every one of them had crossed you once. Everyone had fallen apart after. They'd built secret chat groups, obsessing over you, calling you a sorcerer, a manipulator, claiming you'd hacked karma. But when the investigator lined up the timelines, the truth was undeniable. You hadn't done anything. They destroyed themselves through their own deceit. Your silence was their judgment. Your peace, their punishment. By the end, the investigator saw clearly. You weren't a case. You were a phenomenon. You were a catalyst for evolution, a mirror that illuminated the architecture of truth itself. The investigation hadn't ended. It had awakened them. They had set out to expose you, but in the end, you exposed everything. And as they closed their laptop, a quiet prayer escaped their lips. Dear Father, thank you for revealing what lies beyond understanding. Strengthen my faith even when I cannot see. Let me trust that your plan is peace, not harm. I offer this in the name of Jesus. Amen. If this story resonated with you, like, share, and subscribe. Your support, whether through prayer, a kind word, or a small gift, helps spread this light further. And remember, this isn't the end. It's the beginning of your awakening. Watch our next message for signs that you, too, are among the chosen. Until then, walk in truth, and let your light remind the world what cannot be silenced. You didn't do it for recognition. You didn't do it for applause. The last transmission recorded from the control room before the blackout was a whisper, barely audible. They are not one of us. They are what comes after us. When the light returned, the facility was empty. Every agent, every scientist, every analyst, gone. Only one remained, the investigator who had started it all. They stood alone in the wreckage, surrounded by paper ash and dead screens, holding the single surviving file, a photograph of you, sitting in the same room, smiling faintly, unbothered, untouched. On the back of the photo, written in handwriting that wasn't theirs, were the words, "It was never about finding me. It was about remembering you." That was the moment the investigator finally understood. The good deed that began it all wasn't a coincidence. It was a key. Every act of compassion you performed was a signal broadcast across timelines, calling forth those ready to awaken. Every encounter, every ripple, every collapse wasn't random. It was the system purging itself. You weren't changing reality. You were reminding it of its original design. The investigator fell to their knees, realizing that their pursuit of truth had been an initiation into it. You hadn't just altered lives. You had restored the equation. Humanity, for all its corruption and chaos, had been given a mirror, and you were it. When the sun rose that morning, you were gone. The world, however, was not the same. People began confessing en masse. Politicians, CEOs, influencers, all revealing their hidden crimes in what the media called the cleansing. Cities fell silent, not in fear, but in awe. Data streams flickered with unseen frequencies. Those who tuned in reported hearing a single phrase repeating in their minds. The light remembers. And somewhere, far beyond the cameras and chaos, you walked through a field untouched by time, wind moving gently around you, eyes calm, knowing your part was done. For now. You had awakened the code of truth. But the story didn't end with your disappearance. It only evolved. The investigator, forever changed, could no longer return to ordinary life. Every breath they took hummed with the residual frequency of what they'd witnessed. Reality around them seemed thinner now, like a veil drawn taut over something vast and alive beneath it. Streetlights flickered when they passed. Strangers met their eyes and froze, as if remembering something ancient and buried. They began to see patterns everywhere, in radio static, in bird flight, in the rhythm of passing trains, messages encoded in the ordinary. It wasn't paranoia. It was alignment. The world wasn't breaking down. It was waking up. Across continents, others began reporting similar phenomena. People who had once crossed paths with you started sharing identical dreams. An infinite mirror stretching into light, your voice echoing softly, saying, "Remember what you are." Governments called it the synchrony event. Scientists called it mass hysteria. But the ones who had felt your presence knew the truth. Humanity had reached a frequency where lies could no longer sustain form. The investigator was summoned again, this time not by your enemies, but by an emergency council of world leaders, psychologists, and spiritual theorists. The air inside the chamber felt heavy with fear, disguised as intellect. They asked what you were, how to contain what you'd started, how to reverse the contagion of truth. The investigator simply replied, "You can't reverse clarity. You can only surrender to it." Their words rippled through the room like seismic energy. Screens glitched, microphones warped, and a low harmonic vibration filled the space, syncing every heartbeat to one rhythm. In that moment, even the most cynical among them felt something crack within. Some wept, some fled, some stared blankly, unable to process what their rational minds refused to name. And now, as the echoes of that vibration continue to pulse through the fabric of this world, the question is no longer what happened. It's what will you do with what's been awakened. Every act still matters. Every moment still sends ripples. The equation of truth hasn't ended. It's waiting for your next signal. So if you felt it too, if something inside you stirred while reading this, don't let it fade into silence. Amplify the frequency. Spread the light that remembers. Like, share, donate. That single act of kindness was supposed to vanish quietly into the noise of everyday life. Forgotten, unremarkable, just another drop in an ocean of chaos. But fate doesn't forget. Somewhere far beyond the circle you thought you knew, that one selfless move echoed through invisible corridors, crossing borders, cutting through surveillance networks, slipping into places your name was never meant to reach. Someone saw it. Someone powerful. Someone who's been waiting for a sign like this. Your good deed became a spark in a system built on silence and control. And now that spark has reached the wrong, or maybe the right, people. Files are opening. Satellites are reorienting. Unknown signals are being intercepted. You're not on their radar. You are the radar. They've traced the act, not the motive. And they're coming to find out why. You changed something you were never supposed to touch. The balance shifted, and now forces that don't believe in coincidence are moving toward you. Every step you take hums with the low vibration of being watched. The air feels heavier. Someone's shadow overlaps yours. The good you released into the world has mutated into something bigger than morality. It's a message, and someone out there has decoded it. The question now isn't whether they'll find you. It's what they'll do when they do. They found you, but not the way they expected. They didn't storm in with cuffs or cameras. They arrived quietly. 3 black cars, tinted windows, engines that didn't idle. The air changed before they even stepped out. You felt it. Every sound around you seemed to hush, as if the world itself knew something sacred was about to be breached. When the lead agent approached, their voice wasn't filled with authority, but with hesitation. The kind that only comes when someone realizes they're standing before something that doesn't fit inside human explanation. "You already know why we're here," they said, and though it wasn't a question, you nodded. They thought they were investigating you, but deep down, they were seeking you. Files had circulated through shadow channels, stamped anomaly, classified, divine irregularity. Scientists couldn't explain your existence. Intelligence agencies couldn't track your timeline. Psychologists couldn't map your mind. Every measurement they used collapsed the moment they tried to quantify you. So they called it what they always call what they don't understand: a threat. But the truth is, they weren't protecting the world from you. They were protecting the illusion of control from collapsing around you. Inside the interrogation room, you didn't speak much. You didn't need to. Machines glitched when you entered. Monitors dimmed. Recorders erased themselves. The fluorescent lights above flickered in synchronized pulses, like a code only the silence could understand. They asked you questions in loops, about your background, your motives, your beliefs. But none of it mattered. They wanted to know what you were. And every time they stared into your eyes, they forgot their questions. Their rehearsed lines dissolved into confession. Hardened agents found themselves weeping, admitting secrets they'd buried for decades. The commander slammed the table once, shouting, demanding control. But even he faltered when you simply looked up. "What are you?" he whispered, voice trembling. You didn't answer, because truth doesn't need to announce itself. It reveals. By the third day, the investigation team began turning on one another. Files vanished from secured servers. Surveillance tapes played footage that hadn't been recorded, scenes of each agent committing the same sins they had accused others of. The system itself began projecting truth, unfiltered, merciless. Someone tried to destroy the data. The hard drive melted in their hands. Another tried to resign. Their resignation letter printed out with a single line: "You cannot walk away from your own reflection." Panic spread like static. The facility's psychologist wrote in her log, "This is not interrogation, it's revelation." Subject emits coherence that dismantles deception. Every lie near them dissolves. They moved you to an isolated chamber, underground, shielded by concrete and electromagnetic dampeners. Still, the phenomena grew stronger. Dreams invaded their sleep. Visions of their past crimes, the faces of those they'd betrayed. One by one, they broke. Some confessed on live channels. Some vanished altogether. The organization disintegrated from within, collapsing under the weight of exposed truth. And then came the order. Termination. Erase it. All of it. But by then it was too late. The moment they tried to destroy you, reality retaliated. Systems failed. Power grids shorted out in cascading sequences across states. Communications jammed. Satellites realigned. The unseen network that once protected the powerful fractured like glass under divine pressure.